You're live, Representative.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Environment Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. It is 11:04. We are convening the meeting, and we will open with remarks from the chairs. And I want to start by apologizing that I could not be there physically to run the meeting, but I had to work today. So that's the bottom line. So apologies for not being there in person. Representative Callahan, any comments?
I think I appreciate you making arrangements for us all to do it on Zoom today. Everyone's getting very busy, so it'll be good to see people in person, but this is convenient for many of us today, so no apologies needed.
Senator Harding.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Representative Palm.
Happy Earth Week, everybody.
And I do not see Senator Lopes. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. It's lost my voice.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So item Roman numeral 3, bills referred from the floor. Item number 1, substitute for House Bill 6744, file number 456, an act concerning compensatory reforestation plans, the construction of noise barriers, decibel testing for motor vehicles, and idling motor vehicles, referred to us from the Transportation Committee. I'll entertain a motion to JF the bill back to the House floor.
So moved.
Moved by Senator Lopes, seconded by
Second.
Representative Michelle. The bill made it had its public hearing in February, made it out of committee comfortably, if memory serves. It establishes initiatives addressing noise and loss of trees along our state highways. The DEEP would have to submit a plan to the DOT would need to submit a plan to DEEP for reforestation for all DOT owned and maintained areas, requiring DOT to provide noise barriers along existing highways under federal law. It would require the DMV to establish a 1-year pilot program for vehicle decibel level testing. We all know it's warmer weather out because of all the open baffles on the vehicles lately. The bill also allows municipalities the ability to adopt an ordinance and subsequent fine for vehicle idling. House Bill 6744 has quite a healthy fiscal note that the transportation chairs will need to address with appropriations. Needless to say, DOT and DEEP are not in favor of the bill. However, many advocates, many of whom are our constituents and colleagues, are in favor of the bill. Look, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the effort made over time by legislators to address our constituents who see this clear cutting happening along our state roads and feel a sense of loss. As Connecticut's scenic roads are, in my opinion, one of our top assets. I want to, Representative D'Agostino particularly. Over time and even now, the Merritt Parkway northbound in Hamden, Route 8 north of Waterbury, Route 9. I understand safety is a concern for the DOT and their number one concern, as it should be. And they have a vegetation management guidelines. And, the federal directive is 30-foot clear zone. Any tree caliper larger than, I think it's 4 inches, if memory serves, is fair game. But to me, it's vegetation management, not clear cutting, that was lax over the decades. Look at the safety of Connecticut roadways. In my opinion, is not because of trees. It's because if individuals who flunked driver's ed or out of lack of courtesy. These trees have been here a long time before, before we've gotten here. And look, since I'm on a rant here, I find it ironic that the DOT would have to consult with DEEP on tree removal, since many of our residents were quite upset at the clear cutting at Housatonic State Park by DEEP. But that's another subject. Everyone says they love trees, but they're often the first that are sacrificed. So I'm going to shut up now and let anyone else who has any questions or comments make their point. Anyone with Senator Harding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your summary. I'm torn on this bill in many facets. I think that like you had mentioned, Mr. Chair, many constituents of mine, including myself, have been upset to see the clear cutting that we've seen across our state highways, whether it be I-84 or Route 8 in my area of the state, where it just seems like trees have been removed, quite arbitrarily, and the beauty in the landscape and the environmentally friendly aspects they provide our landscape and our constituents seem to have little consequence when it comes down to the removal. And so any legislation that helps to somewhat curb that, to address it, to reflect the fact that we in the legislature do not condone some of this arbitrary tree removal that we've seen, I tend to support and generally support. There are, however, aspects of the bill that I have significant questions about. I think you alluded to a few of them, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, one of the questions that I have is the fiscal note that you had mentioned. I generally look at the Environment Committee as not a money committee, because it isn't. And that when we vote on legislation, the money aspect, the fiscal aspect, I think is separated. I think we have an obligation to review the policy, whether or not it's good policy, and then generally allow the money committees, whether it be finance or appropriations, to make the determination whether or not the investment that the bill provides is a worthwhile investment for our state. And I generally agree with that principle and that theory, and have supported bills out of committee that have fiscal notes under that theory. With that said, this is quite a large fiscal note, and as Mr. Chair, you alluded to, could you provide some of the details on that? And I think there's a fiscal note for the first year, and then there's fiscal notes for future years, if I'm correct, through you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Harding. My understanding is the fiscal notes surround the implementation of a reforesting program, significant reforesting program, the purchase and planting of native trees in the right space. The fiscal note also involves the state having and DOT having to foot the bill for noise barriers if and when they do proceed with a tree removal project. If there are residents that are backing up to what was the noise barrier that the trees provided, they would be entitled to get a noise barrier installed as a consolation prize, for lack of a better term, going forward. Times that by every project that the DOT is doing in the state of Connecticut, thus resulting in the large fiscal note that we are facing. Actually, that Transportation Committee is facing. They're going to have to go and advocate their cause in front of appropriations to see if there is the will from the chairs to even consider funding such a project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I may, my question is more just the numbers. Do you have the, I understand what policies cause a fiscal note, but what my question is, do you have the fiscal note? What number that may be? Through you.
Yes, so with the fiscal cost to the Department of Transportation for fiscal year 24 is 500,000, and fiscal year 2025 it would be anywhere between 50 to 100 million. The increase being due to the effective dates for the individual pieces of this bill being going into effect. So usually in a year from now, 2024, the reports wouldn't be due, and then if you're subsequently going to implement the program, the costs would come in fiscal year 2025, and subsequent costs for the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and DMV to fabricate the decibel testing going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I may, moving on to another aspect of the bill, and again, something that you also alluded to, and something that I find somewhat troubling is that DEEP essentially would be overseeing this plan based upon what happened right in my district with what happened at Housatonic Meadows. I find it ironic, to say the least, that they would oversee DOT's cutting policies and reforestation based upon, again, what has happened just in my own district. And that's not only my district. I think that's happened in other state parks, unfortunately, across the state. Is it your understanding that the DEEP would provide a level of oversight, or is it simply just a submission of a report to DEEP from DOT? Is that all the bill requires through you?
Thank you, Senator Harding. It would not necessarily constitute oversight, but DEEP would need to, quote unquote, sign off on the plan based on, as you know, the tree removal policy that DEEP did come up with following the incident at Housatonic State Park. They have policed their own now with a spelled out tree policy and steps that need to be taken in order for trees to be removed. I could see that being applied by DEEP to whatever proposal DOT was to give them to look over should this bill become law.
Thank you. And through you, again, I appreciate the insight on that aspect of the bill. So my understanding in regards to some of the reforestation language, and this has been spotted by some of my colleagues, and I find it interesting, if not, I guess, somewhat troubling in terms of the reforest. I understand the practicality of it, but my understanding of the reading of the language, and maybe you can confirm, Mr. Chair, is that it would simply require that the reforestation take place within 5 miles of where a tree was cut. Is that your understanding of the language through you, Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Senator Harding. It is the 5 mile radius, for lack of a better term. I'm thinking is giving the replanting of the trees more wiggle room. In other words, if these trees were taken, specific trees were taken down, but there wasn't a chance to, or an opportunity or a location to reforest within the immediate area, they have a 5 mile radius where they can at least make the attempt to reforest and plant native trees. So in other words, if trees were taken from a specific area, you would want to, of course, start with potentially reforesting the immediate area, but sometimes that isn't possible. So they're giving themselves this 5 mile wiggle room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think that is also an issue I have. I think when our constituents come to us and talk about this clear cutting, a lot of it is the landscape and what it does to the landscape, the beauty of the landscape that we had when the trees were there, and this clear cutting that occurs, and altering the beauty of the landscape for a long period of time, or for eternity, for that matter, unfortunately. And I think what our constituents would like to see optimally would be for us to have something that truly addresses that addresses the clear cutting of the landscape, and then a potential replacement of that clear cut in some way to address what has occurred. I understand for practicality purposes why there's a 5-mile radius, but that is a significant radius, as we all know. I think that the thought that ourselves and some of our constituents may have, that, oh, look, we're passing a bill to ensure that if cutting occurs or clear cutting occurs, that it's going to be replaced to address that. And that's not necessarily the case. It might be replaced, but it could be replaced 4.5 miles away per this legislation. So that's not, I think, the intent of a lot of constituents. It's certainly not the intent of me. And I would argue it's probably not the intent of many of the legislators in regards to what this bill is looking to address. So that's a concern that I have as well. The last aspect of my questioning, and I appreciate the chair for his indulgence in regards to my questioning. The last question I have is related to primarily section 6 and 7 of the bill, which is the idling fine or idling fines that we're allowing municipalities to implement. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you could provide insight on what necessarily the definition of idling would be, what we're authorizing municipalities to fine constituents for, because idling can mean a lot of different things. It could be defrosting your windshield or things like that. It also could be what we probably more think of idling, which is for no reason keeping a car on for a long period of time. So what, Mr. Chair, could you provide any level of guidance on what we're allowing municipalities to potentially fine constituents for, through you?
Thank you, Senator. We do have an existing idling statute that is the 3 minutes is the parameter under which over that you would be subject to probably a warning if come upon, and in this legislation there would be exemptions for individuals over the 3-minute limit. If I could if it remain exceptions to the idling ban, if it remains motionless because of traffic conditions. In other words, if you're caught in a traffic jam, someone's not going to run up to your vehicle and say, "Oh, you're idling for 3 minutes." We're gonna cite you. If you're defrosting your vehicle, heating your vehicle, auxiliary equipment located on the vehicle to continue its usage. In other words, you have to have the engine running to operate the piece of machinery or equipment that is attached to the facility, to the vehicle. If it's below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, there are all these conditions that would pretty much common sense conditions that would give you an exemption from the 3-minute current law, and then allowing municipalities to adopt this ordinance and subsequent fine if they choose to. It is enabling.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. That's something that I do have some concerns about. I mean, $90 is can be a lot of money, especially if there's a tight budget, which unfortunately many families with inflation and the like are struggling with right now. And a $90 fine could certainly be something significant. So I would want to make sure that that language is very much fleshed out in terms of the exceptions and what is allowed. Obviously, there's a significant difference between arbitrarily leaving a car on for a long period of time for no reason. That's not environmentally friendly. That's not what any of us want. That's the reason why a statute exists, obviously. And someone that might be, as you mentioned, in traffic or defrosting their vehicle if it's wintertime or whatever that may be. Last question in regards to that same issue. So is it your understanding that if we pass this, this would allow a municipality to issue an ordinance related to a fine? And I'm assuming that subsequently would allow a police officer to pull over the vehicle in relation to idling. Is that correct through you, Mr. Chair?
Well, I don't know. I know what you mean, but how would you pull over an idle vehicle? This is a trick question.
It's not a trick question. I see where you're going with that, but I mean it. Would this allow a police officer to move forward with the stop? Have probable cause to issue the fine and to speak with the driver through you.
I would gather that if the enforcement officer had witnessed the individual vehicle idling for longer than 3 minutes and didn't observe any of the exemptions, like it's under 20 degrees, or I could see the defroster now defrosting the window in the back of the vehicle, they would have the ability to approach the vehicle. I would anticipate this not being used as a kind of gotcha kind of thing, and hopefully a warning would ensue before any potential fine if the municipality had passed an ordinance to that effect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so again, it's your understanding that it would allow the police officer to provide a stop on the vehicle, even though they might not be moving, obviously, but it would allow it would provide probable cause for an officer to approach the vehicle. Again, is that your understanding through you, Mr. Chair?
The way that I have read the piece of legislation, I would agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your answers. This is as I mentioned at the beginning of my questioning, a difficult bill, because again, I appreciate what it's looking to do here. I think many of us, as I mentioned, have had significant issues with how DOT is operated relating to clear cutting. And that's something that I certainly would like to address. And I generally support all efforts for that to occur. But there are some aspects of this bill allowing municipalities to issue fines, as I mentioned. The fiscal note, even though I generally don't look at it from that perspective in this committee, it's something that we do have to consider when we're talking $50 to $100 million in out years, as well as other aspects of even the clear cutting bill, where DEEP would essentially kind of oversee this plan based upon what has happened in our state parks. I find that questionable, to say the least. So I'd like to hear the discussion on this. I, again, generally support what it's looking to do. I just question whether or not it's truly doing what the legislators and our constituents want this bill to do. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Harding. Representative Palm, followed by Representative O'Day.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm glad this bill has been referred to us, and I agree with the good ranking member about the 5-mile radius. Mr. Chair, is it your understanding that this bill pertains only to state highways, or is it also state roads in towns that belong to the state? Do we know?
The wording of the legislation is state highways. I don't know if that is a blanket term to encompass all state roads. I would assume that it does. I wouldn't think that there would be a delineation, a difference between a state highway and a road if if the safety issue was applied to what tracts of road that the state is responsible for.
Well, that was my understanding too, and I think we need to get clarity on that because there's a big difference. A 30-foot zone on a municipal road goes right into someone's front yard versus 30 feet on the highway. And twice in the last year and a half, there has been clear cutting in my district on Route 148 and Route 80, which are, again, state highways or state roads in the town. And I asked the crew under whose order it was being done and if I could speak to the arborist. And in both cases, I was told by the crew, and it was two different companies being hired by DOT, that the tree cutting company had an arborist who had certified the danger of the trees. I followed up with both of these companies, and I was told by them that, in fact, the DOT had the arborist. So each group pointed the finger to the other, meaning there was no certified arborist ascertaining that these trees were dangerous. Upon which I called the DOT and I asked for an immediate moratorium on the cutting until I could speak with an arborist, and that request was declined. So I think that anything we can do to hold the agency's feet to the fire about a proper protocol, we should be doing. I'm not unmindful of the cost, but some of these trees are irreplaceable and the damage being done is extreme. I read the testimony from the gentleman who is one of the companies hired to do the cutting, and he talked a great deal about safety. I do not understand why clear cutting on a highway increases safety when highways are generally straight and trees don't block your vision because they're not in front of you. And in fact, I would argue the opposite is true. On Route 9, which I travel home every day from the Capitol, they've cut in the center bermatically that now there are headlights flashing all the way down that used to be blocked by the center aisle of trees, making it more dangerous. So I'd love to see a study that proves that these trees are in fact dangerous. And then my final point about questioning the danger as a justification for clear cutting is, if you think about the simple math, the geometry of this, 30 feet in from the highway is the cut zone. But what about a tree that is 50 feet tall that is at foot 31? You would literally, if you think about it as a right triangle, you'd literally have to cut down every single tree going back 100 feet if the average height were 100 feet. Instead, why don't we just put berms and the Jersey barriers or whatever they're called, those heavy wire things to prevent people from crashing into trees? Because I read both. Trees fall on cars and I read trees crash into cars. But again, if you think about the geometry of this, it doesn't make sense to think that a 30-foot zone is going to take care of every potentially dangerous tree, because most of these trees along the highway are a great deal higher than 30 feet. So I think it's a specious argument. I think it's unregulated and it violates DEEP's own, the DOT's own stated provision under which they are supposed to alert people to the cutting and have it be managed by a certified arborist. To the best of my knowledge, none of that is happening. So I would very much like to see us move this bill along. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Palm. Next is Representative O'Day, followed by Representative Reddington Hughes.
Mr. Chair, if you could put me in the queue, Representative Cooley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had sent some pictures to the chairs and ranking member. I have concerns about the bill. As the good ranking member, Senator, had mentioned, planting within 5 miles of the site of deforestation lines 21 and 22 there. I would rather it see when planting along the property line or at the site of the deforestation is not practical or impossible, something along those lines. Because I will tell you, in New Canaan and Darien and Stanford, the clear cutting going on along the Merritt has been drastic, to say the least. I've got friends and constituents who are experiencing the night work of the trucks going backwards, the beeping after the deforestation, so that now and the lights are going right into their rooms, to the point where the kids can't sleep in their bedrooms because of the noise and the lights. So they've got to set up a camping area where they're not that exposed. So, and look, I get it. I have seen the pictures. If we look at the pictures of the Merritt going from the LOB to the Capitol, you see the Merritt was wide open. There were no trees. There were very little trees. And I'm aware of a case where a family won a lawsuit of somewhere between 10 and $12 million because they were killed. The estate of the family was killed from a tree falling on them on the Merritt. So I see both sides of this. I truly do. And I do believe that, and I understood the last speaker. I don't want to name anybody, but so the cutting needs to be done of trees that pose a risk. I get that. But we have to take into account the dramatic change in the landscape that has happened to a lot of the neighbors where this happens. The property becomes inhabitable, excuse me. And so I would like to, if this gets through appropriations, I would like to see some language changed in that lines 18 to 22. Plantings within 5 miles does not rectify the scenario, the situation that some of these people are going through. And I would encourage anyone who thinks it's not that big of a deal to reach out to me. I will send you video and pictures. It's a huge deal, and it goes on at night, which I get. It has to go on at night because of the traffic during the day. It's a parking lot during the day, and it's a war zone at night. That's a bad combination for the Merritt, those living along the Merritt nowadays. And so I did vote for this out of transportation with concerns. I still have those concerns. My biggest fear is that this goes to appropriations and dies because of the cost, because something has to be done for those living along, whether it's the highway or the Merritt Parkway. When this large scale deforestation goes on, the quality of life is just so dramatically changed, and it's unfair that we need to do something. And planting within 5 miles is not sufficient. Mr. Chair, if just a quick question in going through this, the sound mitigation, is that just on federal highways, or is it also sound mitigation addressed for the Merritt Parkway, if you know?
Representative O'Day, that I do not know.
Fair enough. I should have reached out to you before now at this point in time, but that's something I want to make sure whatever sound mitigation we're offering on the federal highways, we also offer it on the Merritt Parkway and the state roadways, because the noise problems aren't limited to just the federal highways that are experiencing this deforestation. It's also along the Merritt. So I will let others speak, but know that this is one of the top issues going on in my community right now, particularly for those along the Merritt, and I'm hopeful we can do something. I do want to give a shout out to Ann Kleza from the DOT. She had set up a meeting with some neighbors that were experiencing this, and I do know that there are people at DOT that are trying to help, and I'm hopeful that some mitigation can happen for those neighbors. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Day. Before we go on, besides Representative Cooley, is there anyone else in Hartford in the committee room that would like to speak, so I can put you in the queue? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go to Representative Reddington Hughes, followed by Representative Cooley, followed by Representative Dubitsky.
Whoops. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question has to do with, I know that, the clear cutting is the emphasis of this bill. However, deforestation can also be as a result of, trees that are clearly too close to the road. My question is what, in those cases, when they're suggesting that they replant trees that are basically the same species, the same trees, are we not going to be recreating future problems? Because the trees that they would replant would grow to the same height eventually as the old trees that were there as a problem to begin with. I mean, I certainly think that they do need to replant, but I don't know that replanting something that is the same is really such a great idea.
Thank you for the question. From my understanding, this is where the potential 5-mile radius comes in, where if a tree that is a larger variety is taken down along the federal highway, rather than plant a similar tree and thus starting what could be an incident, the issue all over again, you would plant a smaller variety along the immediate edge of the highway, but reserve yourself the right to plant the larger species within that 5-mile radius to make good on the replanting of the native species.
Through you, Mr. Chair, then that would mean that they would be planting two things. They would plant something low-lying where they had taken the tree from, and then they would plant something that would represent that tree somewhere else, correct?
Correct, and I'm sure that would be part of the reforestation plan that DOT would have to submit to DEEP if this bill was to become law.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. That would also probably, factor into the cost of this, because it seems to be quite costly if we're planting 2 trees instead of 1. That would partially explain why the fiscal note on this is so large. My other question has to do with the municipal enforcement of the idling violations. I don't know, a lot of municipalities that have these citation hearing boards, and I just was curious as to what that would entail for a municipality to have to enforce that.
I'm sure that issue would be taken up in the drafting of the ordinance that the individual municipality would or would not decide to do within their boundaries. I think I can't speak for the Transportation Committee, but it seems the intent of this piece of legislation is to reduce noise. So, and not a potential money maker for the municipality. So I would envision the ordinance being drafted that would allow some discretion for the enforcement officer to, rather than give out an infraction or a fine, just to educate the individual as to, hey, not for nothing, but the 3 minutes are up, and we're trying to address noise issues, and not to mention fossil fuel burning issues.
And through you, Mr. Chair, my other question has to do with the idling violations. Is this a very large problem in these small towns and municipalities? I just was not familiar with that.
I wouldn't say a large problem, but I would be safe to say that the majority of individuals don't know that there is a 3-minute current 3-minute limit for idling, and just proceed without that knowledge, with the idea hoping that if everyone knew about it, you would get some individuals that would comply out of benefits for the environment and noise benefits.
And through you, Mr. Chair, that would include, people that were going to pick up their children at school and activities like that as well?
I would say that would probably come under the exemptions, if not specifically stated in this bill, this state law, as these are just some parameters that would need to be included in the municipal ordinance. But if the municipality wanted to expand on that by saying, hey, I'm waiting for my kid outside the school, I'd like to keep the vehicle idling because it's 25 degrees out as opposed to 20. We're giving them the wiggle room to do that. Like I said, I don't see this being as a financial windfall for the municipality, but just a tool to try to educate its residents.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We're going to go to Representative Cooley, followed by Representative Dubitsky, followed by Representative Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with the previous members of the committee who've talked about the issues specifically on the Merritt, but also our other scenic highways with the clear cutting that's going on. Connecticut is very well known for its scenic highways, especially during leaf peeping season, and it's a big attraction for people to come to Southern New England, Connecticut specifically. But my questions through you, Mr. Chairman, is given that there's a federal regulation with the 30-foot exclusion zone, would replanting within those areas that have been cut cost the state highway funds from the federal government if we were to replant in those areas we've cut? And if we cannot replant in those areas, it seems to me that a lot of the impetus for the replanting section in this bill is kind of lost its meaning because we're not replacing and trying to bring the Merritt back to whole that so many people have enjoyed driving. So my question is there a cost to the state in terms of federal monies if we do end up trying to replant within that 30-foot exclusion zone? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Cooley. I do not have a definitive answer on that, but for going back to previous questioning, if we were to replant in that area, but being a species that doesn't grow as tall and wouldn't pose as large of a potential falling danger to the traffic on the highways, I don't see the Federal Transit Commission coming out and measuring all of the federal highways in the state of Connecticut and then telling us that we're going to be out a certain amount of federal dollars because we don't have enough of the buffer zone. But to the point, a smaller species of native vegetation would kind of assist with the noise barrier and also the scenic road issue, and would take out one of the dangers, safety dangers that motorists would face.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I do believe that that's a question that does need to be answered before we do any policy change. And I'm not quite as trustful of the federal bureaucracy as you are. Thank you very much.
I'm going to leave that one alone. Representative Dubitsky, followed by Representative Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions, if I may. First off, with regard to the 30-foot buffer, is is the danger that that buffer is intended to protect against, is that danger a falling tree danger? I believe the chairman mentioned a danger of falling trees. Is it falling trees that's a danger, or is it collision by vehicles?
I believe it's actually both. I believe it's actually both. A mature tree in the state of Connecticut, native anyway, is probably greater than 30 feet or right around 30 feet. But there's also the issue of driving off of the highway that you're on. And hopefully you're paying attention, Representative Dubitsky, to the highway and not to me. Going forward, and you would have that 30-foot buffer so that you're not going off the road and having then to try to navigate trees as well.
Oh, thank you for your concern, Mr. Chairman. I am indeed keeping both hands on the wheel and both eyes on the road. So if the concern is, at least in part, a concern about collisions, then replanting a lower growing species would perhaps alleviate the falling tree danger, but would not alleviate the collision danger. It would seem to me that, at least along the Merritt and along highways like the Merritt, my guess is that we'd be looking at replanting in places other than along that 30-foot buffer. So I'm not sure that would satisfy those that are concerned about that type of clear cutting. My other concern, which I think is a broader concern, is well, let me ask this question. With regard to the idling, does that apply to electric vehicles?
That's a good one. I do not know, and from my reading of the legislation last evening, it does not. I don't recall seeing the word electric in the language, so I would anticipate that it would apply to them as well. But I don't know if an electric vehicle, quote unquote, idles for 3 minutes, or if it just turns off. Maybe someday, if I win the lottery and I buy myself an electric vehicle, I'll find out.
Okay. Well, if it isn't specified, then I guess I would have to assume that in addition to electric vehicles, it would also cover hybrid vehicles. Would that be a reasonable assumption, Mr. Chairman?
But based on the read of the language, I would agree.
Okay. Well, whether or not electric vehicles actually idle, I can assure you that hybrids do. I'm actually sitting in one as we speak. So herein lies one of the problems from my standpoint. We're currently in the midst of passing legislation. I believe it went through the Judiciary Committee to make certain things secondary offenses. So a police officer would be unable to stop somebody, pull over a car, or approach a car because of things like a broken tail light, or some other minor violation. They're being considered secondary violations. So unless there is some primary violations, such as speeding, or if a police officer sees a gun, or something that is that indicates to the officer gives the officer probable cause to believe there's a crime, the officer would not be able to pull over that vehicle, stop the vehicle, question the occupants. And what we are doing here with this bill, apparently, is we are making a new primary offense of just idling, of just sitting there, doing nothing illegal except sitting there with your car on. We're making that a primary offense that a police officer can now stop, approach the vehicle, interrogate the occupants for nothing more than just sitting in a car. There are some exceptions which seem awful fuzzy, shall we say, giving the police officer an awful lot of discretion to approach that vehicle, to stop that vehicle, to pull over that vehicle, and to interrogate the occupants. We also have the problem of, what 3 minutes, my 3 minutes may be different from somebody else's 3 minutes. If the officer doesn't sit there with a stopwatch, he could sit there and watch the car for a while and say, looks like 3 minutes to me. And at that point, under this legislation, it would appear that the police officer would now have a primary offense that would allow the officer to approach the vehicle and detain the individuals, the occupants, at least temporarily, while a citation is being given. At that point, if the officer sees something in the car, if the officer smells marijuana, for example, or has some other indication that there is an additional offense, the officer can obviously take whatever steps are necessary to investigate that, or to detain the occupants. And then you have the additional sort of fuzzy factor of, what if it's an electric vehicle? What if it's a hybrid vehicle? So I'm sitting in a hybrid vehicle. My vehicle is on. I am parked. And at the moment, the gas engine is not running. It's running on electricity. So when my gas engine turns on automatically, is that when the 3 minutes starts? Or does it start as soon as I stop and don't turn off the car? How is a police officer supposed to know that? They won't. They will have absolutely no way to know that. So what it will do is it will give the police a lot of discretion to pull over a lot of cars for doing nothing but doing nothing. I would hesitate to put officers in that situation, and I would hesitate to allow to have motorists put in the tough situation where they're not sure whether or not what they're doing is illegal, and whether or not when a police officer approaches them, what their primary offense could possibly have been. The other parts of the bill I don't have as much problem with, but I think this part gives police way too much discretion, and I would really hesitate to put motorists and police in that situation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Drabitsky, and Representative Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I continue to be impressed by, I know this bill was referred to us recently. I continue to be impressed by my colleagues and their commitment to this committee and and reading all the information to get themselves informed for the committee meeting today. So I commend all of you for doing that. In doing so, preparing myself for the committee meeting and speaking to my colleagues and reading the bill and reading articles in the paper, I came across one from 2011 from the New Canaan Advertiser that interviewed the DOT spokesman Kevin Nursick, who said, preventing any trees from ever having a possibility of falling into a roadway anywhere would require a massive clear-cutting effort that would simply devastate the roads throughout the state of Connecticut and devastate in terms of trees. Removing every tree because of what could happen would be devastating, was the quote. Having grown up close to the Merritt Parkway in Norwalk, the Merritt Parkway, if you also look up the Merritt Parkway, you'll see numerous articles written about what a beautiful highway this is, and what a picturesque highway it is. Then there's also articles about how the beauty of the Merritt Parkway is slowly disappearing. So having to weigh out the safety aspects versus the beauty aspects, and in the pictures that the good representative from New Canaan has shared with me, the massive amounts of erosion due to the tree cutting. But then we have to take into account that we have a colleague whose mother was killed by a falling tree. And you can also look up online the number of people killed by falling trees or hitting trees along our roadways. So it's a difficult situation to deal with here. But also think about, to me, as I read it, putting up barriers as we see on I-95 on such a beautiful highway like the Merritt, putting up wooden man-made barriers would also bring graffiti, would also bring other aspects that would diminish the beauty of this highway. So it's a difficult situation. We want to do the best we can to protect the motorists who use our highways, in particular in this case, which seems to be the most affected at this point, is the Merritt Parkway. I don't know. It's difficult to weigh the benefit of the clear cutting versus the cost of replanting. So I'm struggling with this bill regarding safety, regarding the beauty, the erosion. I agree with the previous my colleague who spoke before me that the idling portion of this I don't agree with. But clear cutting up to someone's backyard, and granted they bought the house knowing that the highway was there, but clear cutting up to their backyard doesn't only affect them, it affects all the users of the highway. And I don't think we could ever prevent every accident happening that involves a tree. We would have to really severely clear cut up and down our highways in Connecticut. So I just don't see this bill being worth the fiscal note, but I also don't see the benefit of clear cutting along our highways. So that's the piece that I'd like to speak today, Mr. Chair, and just weighing out the pros and cons of the bill. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Representative Callahan. Does anyone in the room, 2B, I'm assuming, in Hartford, have there any questions, since I can't see you?
Mr. Chairman, this is Representative Smith. I just have one quick procedural question. If you could put me on the queue, please.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have the substitute language, but I'm curious if you could tell me, if you know or anyone else knows, if with the new substitute language still contains a provision that requires DEEP to have licensed arborists to review all the DOT tree removal plans. Is that still in the substitute language?
That is the substitute language that came out of the Transportation Committee. The Environment Committee has not offered any language changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room there? Hector, you're sitting in there. I saw you briefly. Representative Reddington Hughes for the second time. You're on mute.
This, Mr. Chair, would have to do with the idling yet again. I'm concerned that when oftentimes you'll be on the highway or a secondary roadway, and you'll find people that will pull over so that they can actually take a phone call, so that they are not a distracted driver and that they are out of the way. Would they in fact be, held, accountable for this idling thing as they're talking on the phone in their car, not on the highway?
That if you pull over to the side of the road and you're going to be taking a phone call, a brief phone call, I don't see how this legislation would apply, but if you were going to pull over to the side of the road to take a more lengthy phone call, and one of the exceptions that is suggested in the bill, like it's below 20 degrees, or what is the other one that I wanted to refer to? Defrosting or heating. The idea would be that you would turn your vehicle off to, if anything, prevent it from overheating and subsequently doing damage to the vehicle itself, which is also a factor in the idling factor in favor of the vehicle operator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Harding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, again for the second time. I appreciate the indulgence. I'd like to propose an amendment based upon some of the feedback that we've received and some of the comments we're getting. I think all of us, for the most part, on both sides of the aisle here, support the general aspect of this bill trying to address the clear cutting. What I would like to propose is just simply removing the idling portion. That's been the majority of the questions here and the majority of concerns. And I think it would, if we could remove that aspect of the bill, I frankly think it would also probably provided a better chance to move forward, which is ultimately what we want to see: better accountability related to clear cutting along the DOT highways and noise issues and lighting issues, et cetera, like as was mentioned. So I propose an amendment to the bill, which would strictly just strike Section 6 and Section 7 out of the bill. And all that would do is remove the language regarding the idling section and keep everything else intact.
Thank you, Senator Harding. Can we get that on the, give me 1 second. Can we stand at ease for one moment? Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I was fortunate enough to catch the Transportation House Chair and floated the idea of removing sections 6 and 7 from House Bill right in front of me, 6744. Would not be a problem. So if there are,
if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please, Brad.
I apologize. I think that in order to effectuate what Senator Harding is proposing, we would really just only need to strike Section 6. Section 7 is actually referring to Section 5, and I don't believe that that section implicates the idling provision. So I think we're only talking about striking Section 6.
Senator Harding.
Well, so whatever Attorney Townsend believes would effectuate the intent of what I'm trying to do here, I would support that. So So if it's just section 6, then I'm okay with revising my motion to amend it to just strike just section 6.
So, okay, to help me out here. So I need you to, Senator Harding, withdraw your previous motion to strike sections 6 and 7.
I hereby withdraw my previous motion to strike section 6 and section 7 and shrimp saucers. I make a new motion to just strike section 6.
Thank you, Senator Harding.
I'll second, please.
Thank you. You read my mind, Representative Callahan. Striking section 6 is the amendment that is before us now, motioned and seconded. Representative Michelle, you're commenting on the amendment, the motion to remove section 6.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say there has been bills that have gone through where the intent is to continue working on the language. And this section 6, gives the ability to the municipality's legislative body to adopt this ordinance. So we are actually giving municipal powers to do this. I mean, if I'm reading this properly. I figure that we could have worked maybe on the language to deal with details of that section 6, but to remove it entirely rather than working on making it better, I see as a problem, and I would not be supporting this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Michelle. That being said, pretty much answers my next question as to whether or not this was going to be a voice vote. But does anyone else would wish to comment or ask a question on the proposed motion to remove section 6? Representative D'Amico.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps I should have asked this earlier, but since we are talking about section 6, I guess it's appropriate to ask now. Just for clarification purposes, we already have a state law on the books, an anti-idling law, as you referenced in your explanation a few minutes ago. So for clarification, what is section 6 actually going to do above and beyond the law that's already on the books with regards to idling?
I gave allow the municipality to adopt an ordinance which would allow them to impose a fine, an infraction fine, potentially generating funds that would go to, I read the bill, to the general fund, or potentially another fund that they create to pool this money together. So right now the 3-minute limit is a state law.
So right, and I appreciate the explanation, just so that I understand. Right now, under the current state law, if someone is found to have committed this violation, whatever fine is imposed, the money goes to the state. And this new proposal would have the money go to the town. Do I understand that right?
I believe if memory serves, the current state bill would allow for a warning first before any infraction was given out by the state, but to answer your question, it would go to the state. This would allow the municipality to do the same. So in other words, if who's ever on the scene first in Farmington, if it's the Farmington local police department and this ordinance had been adopted in Farmington, then it would be the Farmington municipality that would be gaining the benefit of this, rather than an enforcement officer from the state doing likewise.
But, and again, I don't know if, not to carry this too far, but currently is not the local police department able to enforce this? What's currently on the books, the state law that's currently on the books?
I'm
No,
sure they could use the state law to issue a warning. The ultimate goal of this idling is to reduce pollution and to reduce noise, not to generate funds. We're hoping that a lot of people will be educated by this and think twice about letting their vehicle idle unnecessarily per the if you read your vehicle manual, it says don't leave the vehicle running for too long because it's going to overheat and cause engine problems. So it's a multi-win scenario.
Depending on your point of view, I suppose that's true, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lopes on the proposed motion of the amendment.
On the amendment, not that I necessarily agree or disagree with it. I would ask colleagues to vote no on the amendment simply based on amending a bill that's coming through a committee from another committee creates just bureaucratic problems. The bill puts a 14-day hold on the bill. And it'd be a lot easier if we could try to talk to the chairs of the Transportation Committee, and I'm the vice chair of the Transportation Committee, about maybe amending the bill if possible once it reaches the floor, as opposed to amending it here in this committee. So I will not be supporting the amendment based on that, not so much on merit, but more on procedure. And I'd ask my colleagues to also vote no. No, thank you.
Point taken, Senator Lopes. Is anyone left in the committee room in Hartford that has any comments on the proposed motion to amend the bill? Hearing none.
Representative Smith.
Oh, yeah, Representative Smith, go right ahead.
Just so I understand, you just were on the phone with somebody. I thought you were talking to the transportation chairman. I understand Senator Lopes' position that this is something that should go back to the committee. But I think the debate we've just been listening to that centered on this whole idling question shows that I think the existing language in section 6 exceeds any practical benefit. I think the current idling law that exists takes care of the environmental priority here. And I think that this section 6 has been kind of a obstacle in terms of the otherwise laudable sections of this bill, and seems to be a sticking point. And there's a lot of areas of uncertainty. I do support the amendment and would like to see that stricken from the bill.
Thank you, Representative Smith. It was the House Chairman of the Transportation Committee that I spoke to, but to Senator Lopes' point, I'm sure I can speak for the House Chairman of the Transportation Committee when if the language to remove section 6 was done on the floor of the House, it removes the 14-day hold on it coming out of this committee should we amend it. So point taken there. Representative Mushinski.
Mushinski, yes. I'm in finance, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If we're going to vote on this amendment, I would request a roll call.
That is pretty much a given at this point. And seeing no other hands raised, or
I'd like quickly, Representative Cooley, Mr. Chair.
go right ahead, Representative Cooley.
Thank you. I will be supporting the amendment, but I also, one of the things this amendment fixes, one problem of concern for many, but also I think it will allow us to focus on really streamlining and getting the rest of the bill up to speed, especially the question of, are we going to have a problem with federal funds? with the replanting portion of the bill. And I think if we correct the idling now and deal with that, it gives more time and more focus to really tighten up the rest of the bill before it gets to the floor. So I would encourage people to vote yes on the amendment and really get this bill set so that it'll be the best bill for Connecticut, our roadways, our residents, and we got a really strong bill going. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cooley. So this vote, if the Madam Clerk can call the roll, this would be the amendment to strike Section 6 from HB 6744. A yes vote is to strike Section 6. A no vote is, well, not to strike. Madam Clerk.
For the amendment, Senator Lopes,
No, Senator Lopes votes no.
Representative Gresco,
Representative Gresco votes no.
Senator Hockenell,
Senator Hockenell votes no.
Representative Palm,
Palm votes no.
Senator Harding,
Senator Harding votes yes.
Representative Callahan,
Callahan, yes.
Representative Anderson,
Rep. Anderson votes yes.
Senator Anwar,
Senator Anwar votes no.
Representative Arzeno,
Rep. Arseno votes yes.
Representative Baumgardner,
Representative Baumgardner votes yes.
Representative Chafee,
Rep. Chafee votes no.
Representative Cooley,
Representative Cooley votes yes.
Representative Dancho,
Representative Dancho votes yes.
Representative D'Amico,
Representative D'Amico votes no.
Representative Dillon, Representative Dubinsky,
Dubinsky votes yes.
Representative Felipe, Senator Gaston, Representative Harrison,
Harrison votes yes.
Representative Horn, Representative McGee, Representative Michelle.
Rep. McGee votes.
I'm sorry, Representative McGee, please. I'm sorry, Representative McGee, your vote was? Representative Michelle,
Rep. Michelle votes no.
Representative Mashinsky,
Kuczynski votes no.
Representative Odette,
Gaia,
please, Representative McGee. I'm having a difficult
Sorry,
time. I think several people are unmuted and they're competing with their microphones. Representative McGee, are you able to speak now?
sorry, it was going in and out. I'm a no.
Thank you, Representative McGee. Representative O'Day,
Representative O'Day votes yes.
Representative Parker, Representative Piscopo,
Representative Piscopo votes yes.
Representative Rader,
Representative Rader votes no.
Representative Reddington Hughes, Representative Reddington Hughes votes yes. Representative Reyes, Representative Ryan,
Representative Ryan votes no.
Representative Sanchez, Representative Smith,
Representative Smith votes yes.
Representative Beach,
Beach votes yes.
Representative Baumgardner, I just saw you come in.
I think I have you voted. And I have you see your hand raised.
Yes, I vote no.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
That concludes the votes I have. I can just take one moment to count up, Mr. Chairman.
Didn't I see Senator Gaston?
Yes, Senator Gaston is here. Senator Gaston votes no.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chair, I have 13 yes and 14 no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion to amend fails. We're going to go right into a vote on sending JFing HB 6744 to the House floor. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
For House Bill 6744, an act concerning contemporary reforestation plans and reconstruction of noise barriers, decibel testing for motor vehicles and idling motor vehicles. Senator Lopes?
Senator Lopes votes yes.
Representative Gresco?
Representative Gresco votes yes.
Senator Hockenell?
Senator Hockenell votes yes.
Representative Palm?
Palm votes yes.
Senator Harding?
Harding votes no.
Representative Callahan?
Callahan, no.
Representative Anderson?
Rep. Anderson votes no.
Senator Anwar?
Senator Anwar votes yes.
Representative Arzeno?
Rep. Arzeno votes yes.
Representative Baumgardner?
Representative Baumgardner votes yes.
Representative Chafee?
Rep. Chafee votes yes.
Representative Cooley?
Representative Cooley votes no at this time.
Representative Dancho?
Representative Dancho votes no.
Representative D'Amico?
Representative D'Amico votes yes.
Representative Dillon? Representative Dubitsky?
Representative Dubitsky votes no.
Representative Felipe? Senator Gaston?
Senator Gaston votes yes.
Representative Harrison?
Harrison votes no.
Representative Horn? Representative McGee?
Representative McGee votes yes.
Representative Michelle?
Rep. Michelle votes yes.
Representative Mashinsky?
All right. Mashinsky votes yes.
So this bill is about.
Mashinsky votes yes.
It is about everyone
Thank
being
you.
fair.
Representative O'Day?
And having
Representative O'Day votes yes.
state dollars that we as.
Thank you, Representative O'Day. Representative Parker? Representative Piscopo?
Representative Piscopo votes no.
Representative Rader?
Representative Rader votes yes.
Representative Reddington Hughes?
Representative Reddington Hughes votes no.
Representative Reyes? Representative Ryan?
Representative Ryan votes yes.
Representative Sanchez? Representative Smith?
Representative Smith votes yes.
Representative Beach?
Representative Veach votes no.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Anyone in the room that missed their vote? In the room or on Zoom, I don't see. Out of courtesy to our members on the Finance and Appropriations Committee, we are holding the votes open until 2 o'clock this afternoon. About an hour and a half from now, either here virtually or in in the Environment Committee room. Again, holding the votes open until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you all for your participation today. And if need be, we will have another committee if we have another committee meeting, if we have a bill referred to us. If not, we will see you all on the 27th. Thank you.
Representative Parker, I saw you. I'm not sure if you're there and able to vote. If you are, please let me know. Senator Gaston, how are you?
I'm well. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I stepped away for a brief moment.
No, thank you so much. You I had you in chance to vote on the amendment, which failed, and then also I have you up for the vote as well. And then let me just check. So Senator Gaston, you have for the bill, you voted yes on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a
Take
great day.
Hey, Gaia.
Hey there. Hi. Okay, Representative Parker. So for House Bill 6744, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we don't want to
Thanks,
see you. We want to see the baby.
The baby?
The baby's eating right now.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think I
Bummer.
should show that on a public.
That's okay. You know,
live.
next time.
Nice to see you, Joe. Thanks,
Nice to see
everybody.
you as well.
See you.
Gaia,
Yes.
who's left on the House D side that hasn't voted?
Yes. So I have Representative Dillon, Representative Felipe, Representative Horn, Representative Reyes, and Representative Sanchez. So I'll send an email to them right now with the Zoom link and also try to reach out to them via their Zoom.
Okay, I've already touched base with Felipe and Horn that it's 2 o'clock. The other three I have not made contact with.
Okay, I'll reach out to
Okay.
them right now.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't trying to jump back on your meeting. I need to jump on another meeting.
Okay, Senator, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks. Representative Eubank.
my Zoom camera wouldn't work on my phone.
I could tell there's some tech stuff going on there.
right.
So we have for just one bill, it's House Bill 6744, an act concerning an act concerning compensatory, reforestation plans and construction of noise barriers, decibel testing for motor vehicles and idling motor vehicles. How do you vote, Representative?
Representative Felipe votes yes.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Hi, Representative Sanchez. I just need you to unmute, sir, and I will take your vote.
Okay, now, okay, how you doing?
Okay, thank you, Representative. So how do you vote on House Bill 6744?
Yes,
Okay, that's all we have for our bills for today.
but that was it. Okay. Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi there, Representative Horn. I'll give you a chance to unmute yourself, and I just have the one bill that I'll ask you about, Representative Horn. So that's in House Bill 6744, that concerning contempt. Never mind.
You've read it enough times today. I vote yes.
Thank you, Representative Horn.
Thanks, Gaia.
Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too.